Hello and welcome to this video looking at the setup of Cocos2dx version 3.4 on Windows, eventually for Eclipse, and I'll also probably run the project, a project in Visual Studio as well to show the base project running in a window. The reason for this video, very quickly before I get going, is the previous versions, version 2 especially of Cocos2dx, it was extremely clear in the README exactly what you had to do to get a project up and running, and it was also very clear from the Android perspective. They provided Android a download, which was a package of Eclipse with the Android development plugin already installed to enable you to get up and go inside Eclipse running Android. Well, a couple of things have changed since then. One is Cocos2dx is now into version 3. I think I already did a few videos on the Simple Flappy Robin game with version 3.2 or 3.3, I can't remember. Which is good because each new release is better, particularly in terms of the structure and setting a project up. Once you've got your environment set up correctly, everything runs extremely smoothly and is very easy compared with, say, version 2. What has changed from the Cocos2dx point of view, though, is the documentation that comes with it in terms of the README. It's getting more and more, in my opinion, tailored towards the assumption that people using it have used it before. So it's not very clear at all from the README exactly how you should do things. So I thought it might be useful to do a video for somebody first starting out with Cocos2dx of setting things up correctly. The other issue is with Android, that Android Studio has now become the standard IDE for Android development and isn't supported by Cocos2dx. Well, not without doing a bit of messing around in the background, but out of the box the project that's created is for Eclipse and not for Android Studio. And Android no longer provide a download of ADT, the development tools where everything's combined together. So what I wanted to show today was just the setup of the Android plugin inside of Eclipse and also the SDK. Before we do that, however, we need to have some basic things on the system. We need a C++ compiler, a Java development kit, and Python installed. Now, if you've already got those installed, I'll put a timestamp in the information part of this video so you can skip all of this part. But if you haven't or you're unsure, then you have to have these installed. They're prerequisites, otherwise things are not going to work. So the first thing you need is you need a C++ compiler. If I just bring up a command window here, just have G++-V. If you don't get an output that looks like this, telling you what version of C++ compiler you've got in here, you don't have one installed, or you do have one installed somewhere but that you haven't got the path to the compiler, to the G++ executable, inside your environment path variable. I'll explain a little bit what that is later on, but really we have to start from some kind of base point. I'm assuming what you know what the environment variables are, how to set them, and what the path variable is, because we need to modify that and set some variables to get Cocos2dx to work. So the first thing is to get our compiler, C++ if you don't have one, just go to mingw.org, go to downloads, and download this executable here, and then just run the executable. You can see it running here. It wants to install to cmingw, like so. I just click continue. It says it's already installed because I have. And what I'm actually going to do is cancel because I've done everything. But I installed everything into cmingw, and then what that does is that installs, you'll see an icon appear on your desktop. It gives you an IDE which you can start called mingw installer, and this allows you then to install the compiler packages. I'll just go to my C drive just to show you the directory that's appeared in here. You can see here that we've got mingw inside the C drive here, like so. So what you need to do then is just go to basic setup. You can see the packages I've downloaded. If you click on an empty box, it allows you to mark it for installation. I marked these for installation. You don't need this one here with Objective-C, but I wanted it anyway. So just mark these, and then once you've marked them, you can just go to apply changes, and it may ask you or may not ask you, are you sure, etc. But it'll start downloading and installing these packages for you. Once that's done, you should end up with, inside mingw, a folder structure looking similar to this. What you need is you need the path to the bin, like so, because this is the directory that contains the G++. I'm just going to, where can I change the view? Probably in here to list. Okay, so inside here we've got the g++.exe. So what we need to put is this path into our environment path variable so that when we type G++ into the command line, it knows where to go looking for it. So the first thing to do is just to save that address because we're going to need it in a short while. The next thing you need is the Java development kit, and what that means is in your program files you should have Java, and if you've got a folder JDK, then you've got the Java development kit, and you need version 1.7. So if you haven't got it, then we need to go just type in Java JDK, and here you can see there's the link to the development kit 7. Just jump into there, Windows x64, download and run the installation, and I installed it in the default directory. Wherever you installed it, you need to go into the JDK folder like so, and then take this address, and this also will need to add into our environment. We'll need to create an environment variable later and add that also into the path, so we need that one as well. Last but not least, I said we need to install Python. You might have it already. It'll be in Python 2.7 like this. And this is the path we'll need. If you haven't got it, you need to go to python.org, into downloads, not documentation, downloads, and then just download 2.7.9 and run the installation. And again, when you run the installation, go into Python 2.7, make a copy of this directory here, and just paste it into here so we can set up the environment variable. So once that's all done, let's go into setting up our environment variables. So we'll open up the control panel, go to System and go to Advanced System Settings, and inside there we've got System Properties and Environment Variables. Now I don't want to spend too much time explaining what's going on here, because that's not what the point of the video is, but here is the path. If I just go to Edit the Path and just hit Copy, and I'll just bring across Notepad, and just at the bottom here just paste the path in so you can get an idea of what is going on inside the path. The path basically contains all paths that we want to be searched for when we're trying to run a program, say in the command prompt. So if I want to run the program G++, like I did here, asking for the version, first thing it does is search just in the C for G++. If the system doesn't find it, then it goes through all of the paths that we have in the path variable to see if it's in there. And each path, this is one here in common, is separated by a semicolon, as you can see. So then we've got the system root, system32 there, and then if I go a little bit further along, because obviously I've already got things set up on here, we'll find the mingw. Here you can see we've got mingw, semicolon, then the Java, JDK, semicolon, and the Python as well was further along there before I click that off. Always separated by a semicolon, and obviously the final path doesn't need a semicolon on the end. So what you need to do is, on the end of the variable here, you need to enter one by one the paths that we've just saved under Notepad. So if I was editing this again, I'll just get rid of this here, I would first of all enter mingw, right, a semicolon, then mingw right on the end like so, and then a semicolon and Python, and then a semicolon and program files Java like so. I'm not going to do that because I've already got them stored. But what you should end up then is that your path variable contains these extra paths like this. The other thing you need to do, and you might not need to do it, but I do it anyway because sometimes I get strange problems, is to create a new variable called Java Home. So you would say new, type in Java Home, and in the value for this you want this Java JDK, copying and pasting into there, and you press OK, and that'll be saved. I'm not going to press OK because I've already got it inside here. Once you've done that, just press OK, or sorry, press Apply, and then restart your computer to load up the environment variables. And then please just very quickly do the check with a G++-V. You should be able to type then Python, and Python should start, which you just exit by typing exit with some curly brackets. And last but not least, just double check that the Java version also is correct in there, so that everything's set up and good to go before we start actually looking at the Cocos2dx. Okay, now that we've finished setting up the compiler, Python and Java, we can get into the Cocos2dx part. And the bad news slightly is there is some downloading to do here. You need to set aside probably an hour for all of this, unfortunately. Well, I did anyway. So I made a folder called Cocos2d to make things relatively easy, and we need to start downloading a bunch of things. The first thing we need to download, obviously, is Cocos2dx itself. Just click on the download button here. It'll give you a zip file, which you then need to extract. I've extracted this zip file straight from this Cocos2d directory. It gave me this directory here. there's another one inside it, and then what's the root directory is this one here. It's in a list already. I'll just move this up a little bit. So this is the root directory with the setup Python script we'll be running later on to set all the variables and everything up for first time use. This directory we're going to need for later, so please make a copy of this directory here. I've already prepared it. You can see in Notepad here, this one here. That's what will be known as our Cocos2dx root. You'll see how that will work later. You also need to make a saving of the Cocos2dx tools console bin. This is the console root. Make sure you save this address and copy it as well and paste that into Notepad. And the other one you need then, as you can see here, is templates. That is this one here. So you need to save these directories here. So once you've downloaded and unpacked Cocos2dx, let's go back up to the Cocos2d directory. We need Apache Ant. So just go to Apache Ant in Google, binary distributions, and you can find a zip archive here. Just download that and extract it. I created a folder called Ant and extracted inside there, which gave me Apache Ant. And this with a 1.94, again, we need to save this path here to wherever you've installed it. And you can see that I've saved that here because we'll be needing that for a variable later. All of these will become environment variables. The next thing we need is a bigger download, and we need to start thinking about the Android development side of things. So we need Eclipse. I've made a folder called Eclipse for preparing to download Eclipse. It's already downloaded here. We'll look at the link in a minute. I've created a folder at WS. It's just for the workspace. I've created a folder called Eclipse for actual Eclipse itself here, although I don't think I created that. I think it comes from this extraction here. But the important thing is I created a folder for Android SDKs. That's the Android SDK will be put in there, and the Android NDK. So the SDK is the supplier development kit. The NDK is the native development kit. Okay, so this is where you do the C++ development under Android instead of Java. So we need to get both of these two things first. So back to the web, and we want to type Android SDK, and the Android SDK is offered as part of Android Studio, as you can see here. And if you scroll somewhere down this screen, you'll find the standalone SDK tools here. So you can just download this zip. I downloaded the zip here, and you can see from the directory that I created here inside, here is the zip that I downloaded. It's exactly the same one as you've just seen on the screen. And then I extracted that to here, that created this folder here, and put some things inside, but not all of the things that you can see now. I'll cross that in a minute before, after we've dealt with Eclipse and the NDK. Okay, but the important thing is you've got this, you know this path, and it's in here. And you need to then copy this path, and you want this path saving as well because we'll need it later on, and you can see that I've got the path set up there. The next thing then is back into the good old interweb. Down the left hand side you can see NDK. You need to download the NDK. I downloaded this one for Windows 64-bit. It's an exe, but it's actually just a 7-zip unpacker. And I then, inside this folder here, I unpacked it to this one here, such that this one is the root. So all the folders ended up, you can see the structure here, so you know how I did it. And then I saved this path, which will later be the root, as so, into a text file. So the sum is you should have 6 directories in a text file, which we'll be needing later. And last but not least, we need to get Eclipse itself. So to get Eclipse, I'm sure it's not hard to figure out. We go to eclipse.org and we go to download, and then we've got Eclipse IDE for Java developers. I just downloaded the 64-bit Windows one, and that's a zip file as well, which is good. It downloaded here, and I just right-click 7-zip and extract here, and that created this Eclipse directory for me. Now, before we start Eclipse and start integrating Android, we need to actually get some stuff loaded in the SDK. So if you fire up the SDK manager.exe, yours will look slightly different to mine because I've had to pre-prepare some stuff, otherwise this video is going to take me... I tried doing everything fresh and live, but I ended up forgetting after I'd waited for a download what I'd said before, so I ended up repeating stuff and got annoyed. Anyway, if you close up all of the major arrows like so, just leave this extras one open. Basically, the way, if you've not used this before, this is to download the varying development kits for Android against Android version or API version. Now, what you need to do is, I'll uncheck the 5.1, that'll probably be selected by default for you. Inside the tools, I've already installed, so you need to make sure if they're not installed, if they've got not installed, that you put ticks next to the build tools, platform tools, and the SDK tools. What I did then was I put a tick inside 2.3.3, and I actually did it in 2.2 by mistake as well, but 2.3.3 is the one we're going to be using, so you just fill this entire box to download everything. You can see I've got them installed as part of 2.3.3. And then in the extras, I downloaded the support library and the Google USB driver, just if you're USB connecting your Nexus or something like that. And this is where, if you want to use Play services or anything like that, or billing, you would also have to download the various libraries and install those as well. So use this SDK manager to manage the various versions of Android you want to develop against. Now, we can do this also from Eclipse, but it's better to have this all done and installed and ready before we start Eclipse, otherwise it shouts things at you and it makes things easier this way. So once you've done that, what you'll have highlighted down the bottom here, for example, if I tick 5.0.1, it says install 14 packages. You click accept the license agreement, and you'll spend probably at first quite a lot of time waiting for it all to download because it's quite big. Once that's done, you can close the Android development kit, SDK manager, which is here. You can close that down, and now we can look at actually starting up Eclipse and installing the Android plugin. So here's Eclipse in its glory, and I'm actually considering deleting Eclipse. No, I won't, because it takes a while to install the plugin. I'm not going to have another pause on the video. Okay, so we fire up Eclipse. Once you've extracted Eclipse into its own directory, you just need to fire it up. It'll ask you to define a workspace. I've already defined one here. It's just where your projects will be saved. You can switch workspaces. I'm sure if you develop a bit, you're familiar with that. You might have a welcome screen the first time here. There'll be a little white X. Just close it down. And what we need to do now is install the Android plugin, which I've already done, and therefore got these two little buttons here. This one here opens the window that we were just looking at, the SDK manager. You'll need to install this plugin. So what we need to do is go to the web, Android SDK, back on the SDK page, Eclipse with ADT, and then down somewhere here, installing the Eclipse plugin. Here's an address, download the ADT plugin. You just need to copy this address. Then we go into Help, Install New Software, put the address in here, and click Add. Now when you click Add, it won't work for me now because I've already got this installed, but you just give it a name, say Android SDK, or lowercase, click OK, and what will happen then is it will start to locate all of the tools under this address. They'll all be found here. It's saying for me all items are installed. Put a check mark in here, and then just click Next. It might give you a warning or something, but what it'll probably do when you click Next, it'll say down the bottom it's calculating background information. This is going to could take anything between 10 minutes and half an hour. Don't worry, just leave it there, it'll eventually work. When it has, it'll throw up some question, do you want to continue, things like that. Just do it, keep clicking Next, but eventually what you'll find is that the tool will have been installed. When you've installed the tool, you'll then get the Eclipse telling you it needs to restart. Is that okay? When it says that, then say yes, it's okay. I want to restart. And then when you restart, it'll tell you it doesn't know the location of the Android SDK, and it'll automatically open up preferences for you in this window here. And when you've done that, you'll see that you've got SDK location. You need to browse to the location of where your SDK is. And in our case, it's inside Eclipse, Android SDKs, Android SDK Windows, as you can see. And all you need to do then is click OK and Apply. And what that will do is refresh the window with the APIs that you've downloaded, assuming that you left enough time for them to download in the previous part when we had the SDK Manager window. So you can see here it's detected the Google APIs for API 10 and 8 and Android 2.2 and 2.3.3, which were the versions which I downloaded. If you don't see anything in here, then something has gone wrong. And if you can't figure out why, pop me a comment in the comment section. I'll try to help. So assuming that's worked, you're now actually good to go with developing for Android under Eclipse, believe it or not. So what we'll do then is we'll just minimize Eclipse for now, because now we can look at Cocos2dx itself. So into Cocos2dx then, and the first thing we'll take a look at then is the README and the setup.py. Now I've already got these open inside Notepad because I tried to make a little bit of preparation. And if we look inside the README here, it looks to me, and it's no criticism whatsoever, because at the end of the day I think the people developing this now, native language is not English, but how to start a new game looks to me like English that's translated, because it's not actually an accurate description of what's been done here. Here is setting up the variables to run future projects or create future projects under Cocos2dx. And here's an example how to do it from scratch, which is quite correct, except this might not be very clear for you what's going on here. But to do this, to run Cocos, for example, directly from the command line, means we need actually the path to this inside our environment variables, obviously. And the setup.py is supposed to, I think, create these variables for you by finding, I've gone into setup.py now, finding these and setting these variables according to what they are. So the Cocos console root is, for example, this one here, and you'll see in a minute why we've saved these in the text file. When I ran this script, it didn't work at all. So what I decided to do was to open up the control panel and actually set these variables myself. So I went into System, and then Advanced System Settings, and then Environment Variables. And you can see here that for each of the variables, I'll just bring the text file back, that are here, I've created them and set their values inside here. So for each one, for example, Android NDK root, I went new, dropped in Android, let's just show you, dropped in Android, SDK root, found the SDK root, which is this one here, copied this into here, hit OK, and that was that one saved. I then did the same for the ANT underscore root, and the ANT root is this one here. The Cocos console root is the one with the console/bin here. The Cocos templates root is the one with the templates. I'm sure it's fairly obvious. The Cocos X root is the one here, which is just the root to Cocos2dx. Then we have the NDK root, which is the one with the NDK directory here, and ant root, ANT underscore root, which is this one here. So you need to add all of those into your system variables, click OK and then apply, and you'll need to restart, unfortunately, because Windows, the computer, so that it actually registers these environment variables. But what that should mean then is that you're able, from the Cocos2dx directory here, if I just copy this directory, to run setup.py. So I'll just go to that directory myself now. It shouldn't do any harm running it again. And now I'll just run setup.py. And you can see that we've got some text. In my case, it's found all of the variables, so it hasn't need to set anything or do anything. It's found everything where it expected. What I think will happen is if it doesn't find these then in the path, it'll set these and copy these into the path as well. But the point is, all our variables are all set up correctly. You run this a couple of times, everything should be set up, and also you'll need to restart your computer again. I don't need to because I've already done it. So let's go then to the next part of the README and have a look at how we actually go about setting up a project. And I'm wondering if I've actually got the project setup line in here. I haven't, no. Okay. So to set up a project, we need to run Cocos, new, my game, blah, 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 projects directory like so. Alright then. So let's go back up here then, and let's actually make a new folder inside here. And I'm just going to call this projects, and we'll put it in there. So let's just copy this address as text. And now inside the README itself here, this is the projects directory. Cocos new my game, I'll just call it chapter 4. Let's make it lowercase because I'm trying to make a mess. So ch4 -p com.ch4, let's put blue fever, why not, and everything else we want to leave the same. So I'm going to take this line now, we're inside the Cocos2dx directory, Can I expand a bit? Yes, and just paste this inside here, and now just run this. And now you can see that it's copying the files and creating the project. It's going to take probably 30 seconds or so to do it, so I'm going to sit here and wait. Good, and the project has now been created. And if I go into the directory here, you can see that we've got our Chapter 4 project created. So we've got our classes. This isn't a lesson on Cocos2dx itself, so I'm not going to explain about these. If you're familiar with it, you'll know what these are. These are it's the main, just one scene of the application. But importantly, what we've got is we've got everything we need for the different platforms. So we've got our Android project here, and we've got, oops, gone back too far, for instance, our Win32 project for Visual Studio here. So what I'd like to do now then is get this up and going inside Android. So let's fire up Eclipse. And what we're going to do first of all, before we import our project that's been created under projects here, we're going to import the Cocos2dx library into here. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to import, go to Android, existing code into workspace, and now browse. And I'm going to browse this PC, Cocos2d, Cocos2dx. And now I've got to remember, as it's just coming into my mind, exactly where I go. I go into Cocos and then platform. And guess who can't remember exactly where he's got to go to find the library project. So I'm just going to inside here. I'm sorry about this. I've completely forgotten where I've got to go to import the. Let's just search for Java. So we're in Cocos platform and Android. I thought I was going crazy. I was in the right place. So let's just go back to here. So it's in Cocos, and then there should be platform and Android. Oh, I was staring straight at it. And Java. So you're inside. The path we're inside then here is the Cocos2dx, and I've gone into Cocos itself. I thought I was going crazy. I wasn't. I've got platform, then Android, then Java. And this project here is the Cocos2dx library you'll need in your Eclipse project. So you can see there it's detected it. We don't want to copy anything into the workspace. We'll leave it where it is. We'll hit finish. And this is now entered into here. Now you might find that your project's on build automatically. I'd recommend taking this off. It will have built now, but before we carry on with anything else, let's just take it off. And mine has already generated in the bin. You can see the jar file already of the library. And often what goes wrong for people in Eclipse is it's not very clear that you have to have this library imported into your project, otherwise you get all sorts of errors. You don't have to actually build the project, but it won't let you from Eclipse run the application on anything because of errors due to not having the library. Now we can import our project into the workspace. So we just go import existing project. Again, we go into our directory of Cocos2d. Now we've got projects, chapter 4. And now we find the Android project, click OK and click Finish. And this has now imported our project, and you can see down the bottom here that it's starting to already compile the project that it's importing. Okay, and now we can see down the bottom of the results here in the console that everything seems to have compiled and worked okay. Now shortly some errors might appear in here as it realizes that it hasn't got the library link properly. Maybe this is okay, the library's inside the bin here, but just as a double check, if you are getting errors, just right click, go to properties and Android, and here you can see there's nothing referenced here, and in fact this is saying is like, oh, that's because I'm looking at libcocos2dx. Brain fart. Right, let's go again to here and close this. And just right click on here now and go to properties, and here we can see we've got a problem here with the library path. Okay, it's not found the right thing. So what we can do is we can just remove this and now go to add, and now add in our libcocos2dx, and the library is included properly inside the project, and that'll get rid of any errors you get inside your app activity with the source or anything, because often what people get stumped by is finding a red line under here because the Cocos2dx activity isn't recognized. And that actually is all we need to do. We can now run the application on the Android device. Now I'm not going to show it running on the Android device, but I'm going to run the application and see if we can find the logcat output from here. So I'm just going to right click on here, and go to Debug As an Android application. And I've got resting on my knee Nexus 7. It's just launching down the bottom right here. And here we want to say yes, we want to monitor logcat, everything like that, with priority higher than, let's just have debug and OK. And now we've got logcat, which is the logging info, and here you can see the output from my Android tablet, which is saying that the application here is actually running, and of course the tablet's gone to sleep, so I'll just unlock. And now if I close the application, see if we get anything in the window. Yes, we do. Okay, so there we have the application actually running. Like I said, it's a bit of a chore to go and film the screen and then add it into the video just for this. But what I will do very quickly before we finish, now we've got the application running in Eclipse, let's just see the application running inside Visual Studio in a normal window, because it's easier and is much easier for the general development of your game, because you don't need to run it on your Android tablet or something all the time. So if we just go back into the Cocos2d directory where our project is, which is not there, it's in Projects, Chapter 4. And here we've got the Win32. I've got the Visual Studio 2013 Community Edition installed. I'm just going to fire up the solution here. And it's appeared. And now down the bottom we've got endless parsing of files going on, of course. I'm on a computer with 16 gig of RAM, fast Haswell i5. And I don't think I can get much quicker than an SSD hard drive, so it's as quick as it can be probably, but it's still passing away. Okay, now it says it's ready. I'm just going to go up to the top and rebuild the solution. Okay, and the build is finished successfully, so nothing needed to be done. Remarkable. And now if I just run this under the local Windows debugger, whatever it's saying the project's out of date, I've just built it. Okay, it builds again, and the window appeared to the left, but now you can see this is the window here of the application running with the shutdown button, the frame rate showing and stuff like that. Okay, so that's it then. That's a bit longer than I thought it would be, but that's hopefully a fairly easy to understand and comprehensive overview of how you go about setting up Cocos2dx version 3.4 to run inside Visual Studio or Eclipse on your machine. Hope you have fun. If you have any questions or any problems with it, let me know. I'll try to help in the comments section, but hopefully now it's a bit more straightforward. Thanks very much for watching.